you metal-munching moron! Why do I surround myself with fools? Even the robots are smarter than you!
Today, we will gonna cover the show He-Man and the Master of Universe from beginning to end. He-Man is an American animated television series that utilizes traditional animation produced by Filmation based on Mattel's toy line Masters of the Universe. The show has total numbers of 65 episodes, starting in 1983 and ending in 1985. And the show was one of the most popular animated shows of the 1980s. In this show, He-Man is the most powerful man in the universe, who goes against the evil forces of Skeletor to save the planet Eternia and to protect the secrets of Castle Grayskull. Before we start the recap, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. So without any further ado, let's jump right in.
Part 1 starts with He-Man's death, so Teela can build her own journey. Well, if you have seen the series, you already know that somehow this show is more about Teela and how she returns Eternia back to its former glory while also managing to save He-Man to some extent. In the first episode, aptly titled as The Power of Grayskull, it begins with He-Man leading the transport of prisoners Clawful and Spikewar into Castle Grayskull. Upon their arrival, the sorceress appears only to be shocked when Skeletor reveals himself by cleverly disguising as one of the prisoners. But what really shocks her is that it was Faker masquerading as He-Man, simply to build up the illusion and secure them a safe passage inside Grayskull. In the ensuing chaos, Skeletor infiltrates the castle, unveiling its greatest secret, which was a hidden power beneath its depths that fueled all of Eternia with its magic. Although the sorceress wastes no time in activating Grayskull's defenses against Skeletor's onslaught, unfortunately the villain outsmarts her, discovering the castle's ultimate power buried underneath. Meanwhile, a ceremony honoring Teela as the new man-at-arms is interrupted by the sorceress's distress call, and Adam reveals the imminent danger to Eternia's army before transforming into He-Man. As the heroic warriors engage Skeletor's forces, they discover the sorceress couldn't maintain the defenses against Evil Lyn, so Teela descends into Grayskull's depths to thwart Skeletor's quest for Eternia's magic. While they try to stop Skeletor's henchmen, He-Man goes one-on-one with Skeletor. A fierce battle ensues, and the Mossman attempts to stop Skeletor, but the interdimensional villain simply burns the nature god into crisp by using his Havoc staff to shoot fire his way. Naturally, He-Man loses it, and then Skeletor tricks him into unlocking the Orb of Power's defenses when He-Man pierces through Skeletor's heart. In a desperate attempt to contain the magic, He-Man proposes channeling the magic through the Power Orb to save the universe, knowing that it may come at the cost of his life. Of course, he succeeds in defeating Skeletor and absorbing the power, but he sacrifices himself in the process. Seeing that Skeletor is now dead, Evil Lyn escapes with the head of Skeletor's Havoc staff, while Teela is still trying to process the fact that Adam indeed was He-Man. Back at the Royal Palace, when Duncan reveals He-Man's sacrifice and the truth about how Prince Adam and He-Man were one and the same, the king basically loses his mind and banishes Duncan, stripping him of his title. So Teela then goes on to lash out at the king and everyone else for keeping her in the dark about Adam and Eternia's magic, and feeling betrayed, she leaves Eternia. Well, of course, Adam could not have known that his sacrifice would have such unforeseen consequences after he shattered a power sword, triggering the gradual decay of all power in Eternia, plus his death clearly impacted every character. The series excelled at portraying these characters as complex individuals with relatable human emotions. The first episode concludes with Teela forsaking her hero's life, signaling an impending time jump, and the second episode only confirms this, revealing Teela's transformed appearance with a badass pixie haircut. She has now teamed up with her new friend Andra and has built a new life retrieving lost artifacts for people in exchange for money. After snagging the Glove of Globola from Stinkor for the priestess, Teela and Andra get roped into another job by an old woman named Majestra, who gives them a job to swipe an ancient goblet from the notorious Snake Mountain. When they hesitate to give an answer, Majestra gives them a hefty sum as an advance, and so the duo accepts the offer. Now, sadly, the arrival of Snake Mountain triggers memories for Teela, recalling a time she ventured into Wolfgate with He-Man. Now it is Triclops who runs the show, leading a cult devoted to the tech god Motherboard in the wake of dwindling magic. His followers transform into half-machine hybrids by sipping from the cup Teela and Andra are after. Soon, Teela reveals herself, triggering a brawl with Triclops and Trapjaw. Amidst this Chaos Blast attacks self-destructs and the Motherboard fanatics chase Teela and Andra through Snake Mountain's caverns. But of course, the duo escapes unscathed. After they hand over the chalice to Majestra, she pays up, promising even more if they help her deliver the goblet to Castle Grayskull. This time, Andra agrees, but Teela isn't interested, considering Grayskull a forbidden zone for her. But Teela agrees eventually, thinking that Majestra is probably up to no good. Inside Grayskull, the sorceress clings to the last ember of true magic in Eternia, which is slowly draining as Grayskull is no longer protected and has now taken on its true form as the Hall of Wisdom. As Majestra approaches the sorceress, Teela unmasks her disguise as Evil-Lyn, and the stolen goblet is then revealed as the top of Skeletor's Havoc Staff. When Teela tries to take Evil-Lyn down, Cringer intervenes and then explains how they need Lyn to help them save Eternia. After Evil-Lyn uses the Havoc Staff remnants to bolster the sorceress's magic, she tasks Lyn to save the last ember of magic with her life and use Teela's help to find the two halves of the Sword of Power in Subternia and Preternia. As Teela, Andra, and Evil-Lyn machete their way through a thick vine jungle, on the other side of the forest, desperate pilgrims queue up at the front of Filegro, one of the last magic fountains. Here, Duncan aids an old man when Triclops and the Motherboard zealots show up, seeking to sacrifice the heretics. Naturally, Duncan defends the people. Meanwhile, Andra shows up to thwart Trapjaw's cannon, and Teela and Evil-Lyn join the fray, only to get entangled in the cyborg's electronic cords. Finally, Beastman, forever loyal to Evil-Lyn, intervenes by defeating Triclops and saving the day. Teela is shocked to see her adoptive father refusing to wield the Sword of Power due to a royal decree, and discloses that the enchanted water he collects is for his ailing friend Orko. He is cared for in a wooden cabin alongside Roboto, who considers himself a brother to Teela. Initially, Duncan hesitates to join, but with Orko's plea and Roboto's willingness to forge, he agrees. As Duncan opts to protect the sorceress, the team sets off for Subternia, navigating the Crystal Sea. The crew faces the Aquaticans, led by a battered Merman. Once more, Duncan arrives on a hoverbike to save the group and then assists in forcing Merman to reveal the gate to Subternia, promising Teela to head to Grayskull as pledged. After being warned of the transience of life in the land of the dead, they approach the gate guarded by a headless skeleton, where Evil-Lyn uses the top of Skeletor's Havoc Staff to open the gate, unveiling a winding staircase downward. As the warriors delve into the perilous depths of Subternia, Teela notices a distant glow and realizes her companions have vanished, and then follows a distant voice cautiously. Meanwhile, Orko and Evil-Lyn find themselves in Orko's homeworld, Trolla. Simultaneously, the Beastman, Roboto, and Andra are thrust in a wasteland, facing an imminent zombie attack. We see Teela arrive at Scareglow's lair, where he offers the sword in exchange for her fear. An undaunted Teela goes on to accept the challenge to confront her fears in the Well of Darkness or risk being lost forever. On the other hand, Orko and Evil-Lyn discover Trolla's Academy of Magic with its magic wellspring dried up, and they're soon thrown off guard when many evil Trollans attack them, forcing them to flee. Meanwhile, in the Well of Darkness, Teela encounters He-Man, engaging in a fierce battle as Roboto, Andra, and Beastman combat their fears in the wasteland, facing shadow beasts and fire bats feeding on their fear. Soon overcoming her fears, Teela manifests the dark side of Scareglow's sword, causing his power to wane, and as the magic fades, the group reunites. After Teela obtains the dark half of the Sword of Power, she hands it to Evil-Lyn, who uses it to open a door to Preternia. Just then, Scareglow reappears, but Orko sacrifices himself to protect the group, allowing them to pass through the door into Preternia. This scene, marked by an outstanding score, animation, and character development, stands as my favorite in the series, evoking genuine emotions. The heroes then mourn Orko's loss, and the show's poignant exploration of grief is remarkably beautiful. Despite expectations given Kevin Smith's involvement to infuse humor or satire into the narrative, the series takes a mature approach and steers clear of mocking the 80s show's corniness, fostering a profound connection with the characters. Soon, the group is united with Adam, who gives his half to the Sword of Teela, but unfortunately, the group is now trapped inside Preternia, so Teela and Adam seek King Grayskull for an escape. Meanwhile, Roboto, Evil-Lyn, Andra, and Beastman struggle to consolidate the sword without a central forge. They seek out Hero for help, and Andra suggests converting the central tower into their forge to contain the sword's magic while the two halves are joined in one. Although Roboto successfully consolidates the sword, he dies in an explosion. and after Orko's death, that one was pretty hard on the heart. On the other hand, Teela and Adam track down King Grayskull, and the group soon meet at the central tower, where after mourning Roboto's demise, Adam and the crew return to Eternia. They soon find themselves outside the Hall of Wisdom, where they encounter Triclops attacking Castle Grayskull. After Cringer and Duncan greet Adam, he wields the power of the sword to restore the magic, rejuvenating the sorceress and transforming the Hall of Wisdom back into Castle Grayskull. And just when things feel right, the Havoc staff reappears and Skeletor emerges, stabbing Adam from the back. Skeletor apparently hid his life essence inside Evelyn's staff after his quote-unquote death. After seizing the sword of power, he declares himself master of the universe and looms over Grayskull's sky as Evelyn and Beastman join him. Part 2 ends on a happy note. Part 2 picks up where Part 1 ended. The narrative unfolds as Skeletor, armed with his sword of power, endeavors to fulfill his long-held desire to slay Prince Adam. It's almost sad how this skeletal leech is so obsessed with Adam, because even after having all the power of the world, all he wants to do is kill He-Man. Sort of short-sighted, if you ask me, but the transformation he makes after acquiring Grayskull's power is truly recommendable, as he grows twice his usual size, grows a neck made completely out of flames alongside having a pair of ram horns on his skull. While Adam is injured, Teela, Duncan, Andra, Cringer, and the Sorceress unite to resist his onslaught. Despite the team's efforts, Skeletor's newfound strength proves overwhelming. As he prepares to strike down Adam, the Sorceress expends her last reserves of strength to teleport them out of Castle Grayskull. Seizing this opportunity, Skeletor ruthlessly murders the Sorceress and appoints Evelyn as the new guardian of Grayskull. After Duncan mourns over the death of his beloved Sorceress, he is taken captive by Skeletor, who, with the intent of locating the heroes, discovers their presence in the palace in Eternus City and promptly transforms the remaining civilians into an undead army to serve him. Upon arriving at the palace, Teela demonstrates new magical abilities by efficiently healing Adam's stab wound. It is then revealed that Teela, in fact, is the daughter of the Sorceress and Duncan, which makes sense why she suddenly has magical abilities. As Skeletor advances with no scheme being able to stop him, Adam resorts to tapping into the power of Grayskull without the sword, transforming into an indomitable yet primal force. Now, on a side note, Skeletor's power is just one of the show's what-if scenarios, serving more than just fan service, because this part delved into character-focused dilemmas, like exploring what would transpire if Prince Adam summoned the power without using his iconic sword as a conduit, which of course unfolds through dynamic anime-inspired action, sparking a visceral power fantasy. Anyways, in their intense battle causing citywide destruction, Teela employs her mother's transportation spell, successfully relocating them to the Mystic Mountains. Here they lose sight of Adam in his primal state, and drawn by the sound of horns, they reach the Eternian base camp where King Randor is stationed. Now Adam is absolutely primal. Consumed by anger, he approaches to confront his father with brute force, but Randor, having learned from his past mistakes, finally shows the love Adam deserves, which magically reverts the steroid-brained He-Man to his normal state, leading to a sappy reunion with his parents. Soon the entire group starts putting their heads together and planning to overthrow Skeletor and strip him of Grayskull's power. Meanwhile, at the castle, Skeletor puzzles over how Adam accessed Grayskull's power without the sword. It then shares glimpses of the universe with Lyn, who as Grayskull's new sorceress endures Skeletor's constant belittlement. The show also gives us a glimpse of Lyn's tragic past. As a child, she had to run away from her parents, who planned to eat her when they were starving. Growing up, Lyn relied on petty thievery and lived inside the gutters with the rats, but it was actually Skeletor who took her in and groomed her into his right-hand man. Reflecting on her past indebtedness to Skeletor, Lyn seeks counsel from Duncan and Beastman, who advises her to use her power to break free from Skeletor's control. After realizing Skeletor's selfish motives and understanding that his power is basically going to waste after his petty jealousy for Adam, all she had to do was simply seduce him into giving it up. So after channeling the power of Grayskull, she transforms into a supreme being known as Dark-Lyn and goes absolutely berserk, obliterating Preternia to prevent souls from finding rest. With the celestial apex approaching and the threat of Dark-Lyn intending to erase existence, Skeletor seeks Adam and other heroes to devise a plan to save the world from impending doom. Teela, now embracing her true true identity taps into her latent magical abilities to send a psychic plea to all beings on Eternia for support against Dark-Lyn. As the plan takes shape, Adam and Skeletor act as a distraction heading to Castle Grayskull's front. Simultaneously, Teela and Andra undertake a covert approach from below. Despite encountering guards, their mission receives a timely rescue when a liberated Duncan appears on the scene to help them. Meanwhile, as King Randor and his army besiege the castle gates, Dark-Lyn mobilizes an undead army from Subternia, led by Scareglow, to support her cause. Inside the castle, Adam and Skeletor find themselves struggling against Lyn, with a feral beastman threatening Cringer. Amidst the chaos, Orko appears right out of nowhere and shifts the balance of the battle. Utilizing his magical abilities, Orko creates his own duplicates in order to engage both Dark-Lyn and Scareglow. In the midst of the skirmish, the Sword of Power is finally dislodged from Lyn's grasp and retrieved by Adam, who harnesses the power and surprisingly extends it to Skeletor and Cringer, forging an unlikely alliance to save the universe. Meanwhile, Teela encounters the spirit of her mother below, advising her to embrace the magic fully to become the new sorceress. Teela, however, counters this counsel, and unlike her mother, Teela does not give up her mortal attachments to become the new sorceress, and instead allows her attachments to empower her into becoming the first sorceress capable of leaving Castle Grayskull. Now embracing her newfound power as the Sorceress of Grayskull, Teela engages Lyn in a high-flying battle across the cosmos, which allows Adam to concentrate on the external conflict surrounding the castle. However, Skeletor seizes this moment and turns against him because, after all, he only ever cared about defeating Adam. That is very literally his purpose in life. In a dramatic confrontation, Adam and Skeletor clash until Adam's mother intervenes, taking a shot at Skeletor. Adam then rejoins the army, contributing to the defeat of numerous adversaries alongside King Randor, Duncan, Andra, and Orko, who is occupied with Scareglow and utilizes his magic to decisively eliminate the Subternian foe. Meanwhile, Teela transports Lyn to the beginning of time, unveiling the profound beauty underlying all existence. It is honestly thoughtful how Teela does not immediately hold Lyn accountable for her sins, and instead considers taking pity on the scared little girl growing up alone in the gutters. In order to change her perspective, Teela shows Lyn that there is an abundance of reasons to live and appreciate existence. Dissuading her from the catastrophic notion of bringing about the end of the universe, she finally manages to change Lyn's perspective, who can now see the error of her ways, reverting back to her old self. On the other hand, Adam triumphs over Skeletor, ultimately bringing the battle to a close. As the deceased return to their resting places, Orko begins to fade away. However, Lyn holds on to him, insisting that it is not yet his time. With a victory secured, the palace celebrates, commemorating Andra's appointment as the new man-at-arms in recognition of her heroic actions. Outside, Adam and Teela share a significant moment, pledging to stand by each other and refrain from keeping secrets. But the show ends with a massive cliffhanger, because at Snake Mountain, Skeletor reprimands Triclops, who attribute their actions to the influence of the motherboard. When Skeletor attempts to attack the idol, his spell rebounds and the statue transforms into a winged figure that captures Skeletor with tubes and fills him with a mysterious liquid, concluding the season on a mysterious note. Marvelous verdict. Even if He-Man and Skeletor have more screen timing in the second part, it does not mean that the other characters are sidelined in any way. The show does justice to all the characters, giving them a satisfying ending, while breaking a few stereotypes that the 80s built with its female characters. With that being said, even if part 1 was a bit slow, part 2 certainly brings everything together, whilst ending with a banger cliffhanger.
So that's it, and that's all. So if you love the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let us know in which series you want the next video. Thanks for watching. Sayonara.